Amicus analysis. Amicus analysis. Amicus analysis. Amicus analysis.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another rip-roaring episode of Hammerheads, or as you probably heard, Amicus Heads.
Amicus Analysis.
Amicus Analysis. I'm Miles Watson. Who are you?
I'm Marcus Wilson.
Oh, you're Marcus Wilson, right? Yes. Welcome. This is technically this is episode 2 of the new series, but really it's something like episode 20 by now, which is pretty good. We hope you enjoyed or have enjoyed the previous episodes. If you've listened to them, if not, just to catch you up, we began by deciding we were going to cover 18 years of Hammer horror movies, one for each year of output, and then we wanted to do something a little bit different for series 2, so we've moved on to Amicus Film Studios, which is adjacent really to Hammer Horror. They were made more or less the same time. And this week we'll be covering Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, which is very funny and very classic.
It is. It's the first of Amicus's. They were known for their portmanteau films, and this is the first of their 7 portmanteau films. What's the difference between a portmanteau and an anthology?
I'm glad you asked because I looked that up.
Did you?
Yes. So I did my homework. A portmanteau. The word is from porte, it means carry, French, and manteau, which is mantle, so carry mantle, which sort of, it's a bit of a clumsy translation, but a portmanteau is different to an anthology because an anthology is something that's by lots of different people that is brought together, or by one person that's brought together from different parts of their work to create a whole, whereas a portmanteau is something that's lots of different things mixed together to form one. So they're sort of similar, but like portmanteau, the word like podcast is a portmanteau.
Well, I'm glad we've cleared that up.
Yeah, so iPod and broadcast formed the word podcast. So it's one thing. The podcast is one thing, but it's been brought together from different ingredients, whereas an anthology is lots of different pieces of work brought together to, And I've been aware of Amicus portmanteau for a while because of things like League of Gentlemen, which I mentioned last time. They did, particularly in the Christmas special of League of Gentlemen, they did an Amicus style portmanteau story with 3 different stories with cursed monkey fingers and all those cursed monkey bollocks in there, of course, because they're naughty men. Touch them, touch the knackers.
And just as they were influenced by Amicus in turn, and this is the producers, Max Rosenberg and Milton Subotsky, they were influenced by the 1945 British anthology horror film Dead of Night, which was made by Ealing Studios. And so although Subotsky and Rosenberg are from the US, this is very much influenced by British horror of the 40s.
Yes, they said it was, or Subotsky said he thought that Dead of Night was just an absolutely great film and wanted to homage it, really. And
he actually started writing Subotsky started writing the stories that would become Dr. Terror's House of Horrors in 1948 while he was working for American television as well. They never got produced back then, but these are, by the time it comes to this film being shot in 65, these stories would be about 17 years old. So they were much closer in time to Dead of Night when they were written.
Yeah. I was just looking up the cast and crew, and it's a fascinating cast. I mean, we can get into that
cast, isn't it? Because it's
hugely
5 episodes.
5 episodes with a wraparound story, which is the 6th episode, really, as you said, and then the cinematographer is Alan Hume, and I was like, Alan Hume. I know Alan Hume. I was thinking, why do I know Alan Hume? Oh yeah, he did a lot of the Carry On movies.
Oh yeah.
And then I was looking for his later output, and he did the cinematography for a small movie you might have heard of called Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, and a lot of Bond, Roger Moore,
Yes. Roger
era
Moore,
Bond.
Octopussy, he did, yes.
Yeah.
So what a talented guy. Sadly, no longer available.
And Freddie Francis directed, who arguably was a better cinematographer than he was a director. He did a few kind of directory things, but he's kind of probably better known and more respected for his cinematography work.
Yeah, and I think this film gets by on the strength of its cast and its looks. I wouldn't say it's the best directed film ever, but that's probably the only negative I'll bring up in this because I've thoroughly enjoyed it. There's so much to enjoy, and if you don't enjoy it, the great thing about portmanteau movies, and I'm a big fan of them from everything from things like this to Creepshow, which is Creepshow sort of leaned into it being a comic book, and that's 5 stories. And if you don't like one, you
Just
can
wait
just get
15 minutes. There'll be
exactly,
another
exactly.
one.
And that's sort of a backhanded compliment, isn't it? Because it's
Yeah.
like saying, "Well, it's a bit sketchy." It's like a sketch show. Well, it's a bit up and down. It's a bit patchy, and that's true of Doctor Terror's House of Horrors as well. It's like you're never going to get three or four stories in any of these type of movies, unless anyone wants to write in and correct me, where they're all brilliant. There's always one that's it's a bit dodgy.
And almost you need them to kind of build. Like you can't really
Yeah.
go out of the cinema kind of with your head filled with five kind of really exceptional kind of pieces and wraparound. It's like
No,
it
it has to
sort of
breathe, doesn't it?
it sort of builds, and we'll go through them one by one. But
Yeah.
we should just touch upon the wraparound itself to start off with, and
Mm,
we'll kind of close the episode talking about the kind of denouement, the payoff at the end.
yeah. The
But
epilogue.
it's basically five guys who are on a train journey, getting onto a cabin on the train,
Mm,
um, and then Peter Cushing, a very scary looking Peter Cushing, walks into the cabin and with a pack of tarot cards, which he proceeds to let slip onto the floor, and everyone gets really interested in what these cards are and why he's carrying them. So then,
yes, and Christopher Lee says these are tarot cards. And we're like, okay, right, good. I'm glad that Christopher Lee is British again after that last episode where he was an
yes.
American. They let him be British.
And Peter Cushing is Dr. Shrek, which we find out means terror, and it's sort of a
Mm,
callback to Nosferatu and Max Shrek as well.
yeah,
So, and we find out that his House of Horror is what he calls his tarot deck.
yes,
He proceeds to tell these five men's fortunes in each of these five episodes, and the reason that Rosenberg and Sabotsky, I think, liked the portmanteau format was it's quite cheap to film because there's
yeah.
no one really that's carrying, there's no star that's being paid a fortune to carry the film. Peter
Mm,
Cushing is, although he's like present throughout the film, because obviously there's this sort of the wraparound, we see bits of the wraparound between each episode. So it feels like he's been in the film quite, a lot, but actually he's
yeah,
probably only on screen for about 10 minutes, 15
yeah.
tops.
Yeah, he's not in it much. He doesn't feel you feel his presence, and obviously he's there at the beginning, middle, and end, and so forth. But yeah, he's not in it much.
But then you get like a bang for your buck. You get to put him on the poster, and everyone kind of
Yes,
remembers that he's a big part of it. But actually, he's only probably shooting for one day or something. The whole
probably
thing
just
is
on a
made in
train.
like
Yeah,
4 weeks or something.
yeah. It was made for about I don't know, was it 100 grand or something? It was
100,000
similar.
just over.
Yeah,
Yeah,
similar to what Hammer had in the original. They had about 100 grand per
yeah.
movie. God, imagine. um, per movie. Here you go. Can you make 12 movies this year for 100 grand each? Okay. Um, they did a very good job. But yeah, it's got that vibe of the Crypt Keeper type thing, hasn't it? Where it's like the Peter Cushing is kind of the MC,
Yeah.
and he's going to take you through the journey with each of these characters, and also the fact that you've got Peter Cushing in there. Immediately, you're like, well, we've got Cushing and Lee, so I'm on board.
Yeah.
And then who are the other gentlemen in the carriage, Marcus? Because one
Well,
of the credits came up, and I went, "That's not the Alan Freeman, is it?"
well,
Hold off.
let's hold off on old Alan Freeman. Let's go through this one at a time. So, the
Mm.
first segment is entitled Werewolf,
Coming in at
and
number one. Dun, dun, dun.
and it's for me it's the weakest of the
Yeah.
five. It's kind of convoluted. It's kind of quite short, but it's very kind of complex
Mm.
and convoluted. And the thing with all of these portmanteau pieces, because you're trying to squeeze what could be an entire horror film basically into 15
Yes.
minutes,
Mm.
then you have to kind of accept the premise of these things. So in
Mm.
episode 1, we've got a werewolf. In episode 5, I think we've got vampires, and
Yeah.
they're assuming that the audience sort of knows the convention that werewolves, you kill them with silver bullets made from a
Mm.
crucifix, and rather than spend a lot of time in these individual pieces, kind of say, "Oh, what a werewolf!" Or "Oh, I don't think he
Yes.
really is a werewolf. How could he possibly be a werewolf?" And so everyone just kind of accepts the premise that there's a werewolf living in the basement, and there's this
Yes.
prophecy that he's going to kill the house owner. He's going to come back, and yeah.
Yeah.
So it's sort of slightly weird. You've got to be on board with all of that, and not question any of that too much.
Yeah, that's true. And at the first one, I felt like it. What you can't do in a short film is take your time. And I felt like the first episode took its time.
Yeah.
And it was about 25 minutes, the first episode. It felt like that anyway. And I was like, well, what about the other four? Come on. And I felt that, yeah, fine. It looked good. It has good cast in it. Um, but it sort of had this inevitable. Do you know what though? I thought because he reaches into the coffin at one point and gets scratched.
Mm.
I thought he was going to turn into a werewolf, and that was going to be the twist then at the end.
Yeah, but there is another twist, and this is
Yes.
a theme of all the Amicus portmanteau pieces. That there's
Mm,
usually a twist at the end of the episode, and probably at the end of the
mm,
wraparound. That there'll be some kind of thing that I didn't see that coming.
yeah.
And at the end of this first episode, it's like you thought that this architect was there. You thought that it was the house owner who was actually under threat from this werewolf. There was a prophecy that it
Mm,
would come back and destroy the owner of the house. But actually, it
yeah.
turns out that this architect Dawson is part of the clan who originally killed this werewolf, the werewolf's ancestor,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so yeah, it's actually him and he's in cahoots with the lady of the house. They're actually married. So
Yeah. That
yeah,
was good, I thought. And she's a terrific actress, Ursula. Oh, I was talking about her earlier with my
Ursula Howells, yeah.
how that's Ashley Howells. Um, I saw her in one of the Miss Marple productions in the 1980s of Murder is Announced, and she was so good in that as Miss Blacklock, the house owner, the lady of the house, and she's got this
Mm.
fantastically beautiful face, very big eyes, and this amazing face, and so I recognized her straight away. So I thought, I bet she's got a significant role in this, but I didn't
Mm.
guess that she was a werewolf.
No,
Um, so
no,
that,
not.
so actually, having said that, the build up is quite long. It looks phenomenal, and I loved all the setup, like going down into the cellar, the smashing through, the finding of the gargoyle, the coffin, all of that, the lore. I thought it was good, but it felt like it rushed through it a little bit because it only had 20 minutes to do it.
Yeah, as I say, it kind of felt like it could have been a full feature length piece, and
Yeah.
but it's set in the Hebrides, which is where
Yep.
I've just come back from, actually, which
Oh,
was good.
nice. Yeah.
But it's actually weird because you think, because there's this journey in the wraparound on the train, and all of these
Mm,
men are going to towards the same place. You're kind of thinking that maybe the foretelling is about what's going to happen when they get there, but actually
yes.
all of these segments are actually set in different parts of the world, and
Yeah.
so it's all a bit, yeah, tenuous. And
Yeah, like it's as tenuous as tarot cards, isn't it, really? And I do like the fact that, they all go through the tarot cards, and any time there's tarot cards in a movie or TV, everyone fixates on the death card.
mm,
And then someone will say, "Oh no, death doesn't mean death; it just means a change." No, that's what they always do in every single thing I've ever seen with tarot cards in it. So I sort of knew when I was watching it, I was like, "Death is going to be." Well, I kind of guessed the ending actually because
I
I don't think I'd seen this before, so we would have to discuss the ending till the ending. But
yeah,
I
yeah.
kind of like okay, that the last card. Well, it shows you what's going to happen to all these men. Basically, you're gonna come
It
across
was, so
this.
yeah, because he turns over 5 cards and starts
Yeah.
telling this kind of tale of what's in their future, and then the
Mm,
idea is that they pick an extra card, and that's something that they can do to mitigate it, or
mm,
or work around that fate, and actually they all get the death card when
They
they
all get
choose
the
that
death card.
card. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting that you guessed that. I didn't. That was probably me being very slow because it was pretty
Well,
obvious when you get to the end of the film what's going to
well, I
happen.
guess so, but it's either I've seen too many movies. I saw it before once, maybe. I've discussed it once with someone or something because I was like, I've got this feeling I know how it ends, and therefore it was a very satisfying ending for me because I was like,
Mm.
yeah, that's a good ending. Um, but yeah, it's got that sense immediately because this one's the most Hammer-esque. I think it's got werewolf and it's got the old house and
Yeah,
even the first one of the first shots is that is driving through the woods in a horse and cart, which is how every
it
Hammer
is
movie
very
starts.
Hammer, isn't it? And that's very unlike Amicus because
Yeah.
Amicus tend to set things in modern day. It's
Mm.
very much kind of set in its time, and and that's why Amicus ends up being quite. It kind of gets under my skin because it's more set in a time that I'm used to, and
Yeah.
it's not that disconnected from today. So, but yeah,
Also,
it's weird because all the other episodes are more
more modern
contemporary or like
daddy-o.
1960s
Some
or
of them,
1970s.
it's a lot. It's groovy, isn't it? Like we watched it last week. We watched City of the Dead, which has this kind of groovy jazz score in it,
Yeah,
and that set the tone really because a couple of the characters in this movie literally are the groovy jazz men. Um, and I thought instantly the difference between Amicus and Hammer, which is apparent straight away when you're watching this, is that Amicus are more of that. They've got that modern folk morality tale to them, whereas Hammer it tends to be monsters and good guys and bad guys and myth and legend, whereas Amicus has got that monkey's paw thing, hasn't it? As in, we may be living in modern times, but don't disrespect these old ways because they will come and bite you in the bum.
yeah, and we should say that the first film by Amicus Productions for
Mm.
real was this thing called "It's Trad, Dad." This
Yes.
is a film by directed by Richard Lester, but this was
Oh yeah.
very much about kind of teenagers and
Mm.
the trend at the time of traditional jazz music and all the adults being disapproving of this kind of the
Mm.
devil's music and jazz and actually Alan Fluff Freeman, who we're going to
Not
talk
off.
about in the next episode or the
Yeah.
next episode of the portmanteau,
Yeah.
starred in that as well. So yeah, we should
Ah.
say Alan Fluff Freeman is a
Yes.
DJ originally
Mm.
born in Australia, but he was noted in the UK for being having this kind of slightly weird transatlantic accent.
Yeah.
Miles, can you give an example?
Well, he would kind of go, "Greetings, pop pickers."
Yes,
So he had this really cheesy sort of announcement, but I mean, great voice, and then he was
great
very popular.
voice for radio.
Yeah, great voice for the 70s and 80s. And then sort of in the 90s, he tended to parody himself a bit. Like they did have him on with the countdown, and it had that great music. Dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
dun, 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 and he'd go, coming in at number 10. And I mean, Smashy and Nicey were very much
Yeah,
based on Fluff Freeman, weren't they?
yeah.
Paul Whitehouse and Harry Enfield. And he was a very sort of affable chap. He died, a while ago now, but
He
not
wasn't
off
particularly an
was his
actor though,
catchphrase.
was he? He was.
He's not particularly an actor. I didn't when that's where when I saw Alan Freeman, I was like, oh, because he's kind of like the Ralph Bates of this movie, except he can't
Mm,
act as well
yeah.
as Ralph Bates.
So this second episode is entitled "Creeping Vine," and it's sort of a
Yes,
Day of the Triffids
very Day of the Triffids.
thing,
Yeah,
and yeah, basically Alan Freeman plays a guy living at home with his wife and daughter,
mm,
and one of their newly planted vines in the garden they start to notice that it's growing rather fast, and when they try and cut it
yes.
down, it seems to attack their dog and daughter and all of this kind of stuff. And
Oh, as soon as I saw that dog, my God, playing with that
yeah,
little girl, I was like, that dog is got a goner, and boy, was I right.
yeah.
Thankfully, you didn't see it die, but there's just something horrible about seeing just a dog lying there in a movie, strangled by a vine. Um,
But then the Ministry of Defence get involved, don't they? And this is where we get some interesting.
well, M gets involved, doesn't he?
M
Yeah.
gets involved directly.
Bernard Lee. Yeah. Yeah, and did you I don't know if you recognized Alan Freeman's wife and kid in this at all, because I had to look them
No.
up. It's like they're
Okay.
both really familiar. So the mother, I think it's Anne Bell is the actor who
Yeah.
plays the mother. I was like, I recognize that face. She's very beautiful and she's got a little cleft chin and she's a very beautiful face. She's in Tenko, which
Right.
you must remember. I was like, I
Yeah. Yeah.
recognize her face. from Tenko, and the little girl is Phoebe Nichols, who was
Okay.
in, Brideshead and, well, loads of stuff. Phoebe Nichols, loads of comedy, loads of drama, playing the little girl. So she's kind of like the Veronica Cartwright in the Birds of this movie. I was like, is that Veronica Cartwright who's in Alien and Witches of Eastwick is the little girl in the Birds?
Oh,
So
yeah,
she's in
yeah.
that with playing with the dog. Um,
Okay.
and then they go to see they enlist the help of loads of pompous chaps with pipes,
Yes.
um, Bernard Lee and a couple of others like well, to come and investigate what's going on. And yeah, it did remind me of Day of the Triffids. There's a great 80s TV version series of Day of the Triffids, which is
Yeah,
probably
that used to
very,
put the willies up me.
yeah, it was like that sort of what do you call it? Tripods one. The tripods, I guess it was called.
Yes.
Yeah, and there was this great sort of slightly bad Doctor Who 80s special effects series like Day of the Triffids and the Tripods that were actually really, really genuinely creepy
Yeah.
because they were set in modern Britain and they had these, in the case of the Tripods, it was mind control devices that were controlled by aliens, and then they had Day of the Triffids was just these horrible, horrible venom spitting plants, and it's one of my favorite books, Day of the Triffids, John Wyndham's Day of the Triffids, because it's so. I mean, it's a very early zombie apocalypse type movie,
Yeah, yeah.
um, book and movie, and the movie's pretty good as well.
But
Um,
the sort of science fiction in this episode is quite good actually,
mm,
because I can't quite remember what they talk about, but they sort of say plants starting to evolve, having to have roots and could take water through the roots, and then
yeah,
there are these sort of insect eating plants that could survive without
mm,
the root system, and then eventually we're getting to the point where they're turning into these plants that are mobile and they can start to
yeah.
kind of go beyond their rooted.
It's it's certainly more entertaining than M. Night Shyamalan's The Happening, which is a similar,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
there's just plants looking at people going, ooh, and everyone's like, the plants are going to kill us. But seeing plants moving about is always really creepy. I just wish in this segment they'd had more budget than
Yeah.
this small garden plant they could afford to sort of drape down the window.
It's like they've been to Dobby's and just kind of started waving around fronds.
Yeah, if that's for a bit of frantic frond waving. Yeah, that's the thing though. We might as well start talking about the unintentionally funny aspects of this movie because there are a lot in every segment. You've got this, you've got yeah. I mean, we'll mention the others as we come to each chapter, but yeah, the wiggly plant. Bernard Lee, bless him, goes out and has a flaming piece of newspaper, and he's trying to fend off this, succulent with his with his wave of the fire. And it's like, oh, you earn that money, Bernard.
But I mean, that's the whole thing about Amicus as well. There is that sort of slightly tongue-in-cheek
Yeah,
thing that you can go and laugh at these things a bit as well. And
yeah,
also, I think that they got away without being censored in the same way as some of the Hammer films, because a lot of although they are quite, they stay with you these, and they're quite unsettling, but they're not
mm.
X-rated stuff at all. I mean,
No,
it's not blood and gore, and it's a bit more what I guess I'd call Tales of the Unexpected,
yeah.
or
Yeah, they're creepy and they stay with you because the whole you're laughing along, but
I
it's
can,
similar to like Romero doing Dawn of the Dead. Those zombies in that movie are quite funny.
yeah,
They're grey and blue and and you end up laughing at them, but then actually when they deliver, they're quite scary, and you think, well, if I got
yeah.
bitten by one, I would be scared, even though the effects are not
But
that
it's
great.
it's like the Night Gallery or
Yeah.
Twilight Zone, or so it's that kind of.
Yes, it is quite Twilight Zone, actually. In fact, yeah, it's probably closer to Twilight Zone than anything else because it's got that as well, that moral thing of don't disrespect these forces because they will get you.
Yeah, yeah. And
Um,
talking about that, that's a theme of episode number 3 in the portmanteau, voodoo.
Starring, yeah, voodoo.
Yes, and
Yeah. Who's the
Roy
big star of
Castle.
this one? Roy
It's Roy Castle.
Castle.
He always plays Roy Castle, doesn't he? I
He
mean, he's
does.
in one of the other Amicus films, in one of the
Yeah.
Doctor Who films, isn't he? And he's playing
Yes,
Roy Castle in that as well. What he
he
does bring
is.
is bags of energy.
He did. You know what? Respect to Roy Castle. He had a lot of energy. Amazing jazz musician. He was so brilliant at the trumpet, and he's brilliant in
Yeah,
this at
yeah.
that.
We
And
should
the
say he was
character.
sort of a UK entertainer, really.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously an actor, but he's best known in the UK for, probably to our generation, for Record Breakers, which is where he
Yeah.
hosted a show about people breaking international world records.
Yeah. Everyone watched Record Breakers with
Yeah.
Norris McWhirter and his twin. I think it was his twin brother or his
Oh, that's
brother.
right. Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, and he was always bouncing around the stage, and apparently he did a lot for because he died. Unfortunately, he died of cancer, lung cancer. So
Mm.
that's one of the reasons why him and his wife, I think, campaigned to stop for the smoking ban in the UK,
Passive
and
smoking, yeah.
yeah, and it did, and they did win it. So I remember York when I was living in York. York had one of the first no smoking restaurants. I mean, it seems ridiculous now because
Oh, yeah.
everywhere's no smoking, but then smoking seems ridiculous now. So, maybe Roy Castle was way ahead of his time going, I don't think we should be doing this because it's very bad for everybody. So, I think that's his legacy, really, that and Record Breakers. Um, we still sing Dedication to this day. If he used to sing that song Dedication at the end of,
Dedication is what you need.
and it is what you need. Yeah, so
So he
R.I.P. Roy Castle.
plays he plays this jazz musician,
Mm,
trumpet player called Biff Bailey, and
Biff Bailey. Yeah,
he's playing the clubs of London, but he gets accepted to go on a tour of the West Indies,
yes.
to which he does a rather inappropriate impression of.
Very unfortunate, yes, yes. And then when he meets one of the musicians in the West Indies location, which is obviously Shepperton Studios, with some of the vines from the Creeping Vines,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
and it's Kenny Lynch, and he goes, "I'm not a West Indian, mate. I was born in London." So
Yeah,
Roy,
it's all a
Roy
bit.
Castle's character Biff is that he's sort of yeah, he's meant to be a twit. He's meant to be a bit of a twit.
Yeah,
Um, and
yeah.
he plays the comedy. He got criticized quite a lot like this in reviews I've seen, but he was good in it for that role because he's meant to be someone you think you deserve this, mate. You are like a Twilight Zone character who is going to get his comeuppance.
He does stand out in the film just because he plays it so differently to the other
Mm,
episodes, in that you can't keep your eyes off him because he always has this
mm.
energy on screen, and he can barely
Yeah,
stand still for a minute.
it's true, and he's from Scoles, isn't he? West Yorkshire. That's where he's from.
Yeah,
I had to look that up because I'd forgotten, but his accent. I was like, where's he from? Where's he from? Near Huddersfield. And yeah, he doesn't play it straight, and everyone else plays it straight in the whole
yeah.
film. So he stands out as the comic relief, which maybe you need in the midpoint.
It
You need
is.
it
It's the
to,
middle
you know,
point, isn't it? I mean,
yeah,
he. I think this could be a more forgettable episode if it wasn't for Roy Castle in it. I mean,
yeah.
there is a bit. It's a bit more exotic in terms of the locations I'm saying here. I think the sets is the word I
Yeah,
should be using.
yeah,
Um, but actually, if it wasn't for Roy Castle, I don't know if this piece would work so well. Because actually,
yeah,
the payoff isn't. I mean, the whole premise is that he is out in the West Indies doing a tour, and he stumbles upon a voodoo ritual and
yeah.
music that is happening as part of a voodoo ritual. And being a jazzer, he starts to write it all down, this music.
Mm,
And basically, his idea is that he's going to write his own piece based on this voodoo ritual music that he's heard, but that he gets
mm,
found out, and
yeah,
um, they basically say, you can't be broadcasting this to the world. This is
yeah.
part of our heritage and our
Don't steal from the
the
gods.
gods. Yeah, that's right. But
And
he
then
completely ignores that, of course.
and nicks the music. And then when he's playing back in London, he's playing in his jazz club. He plays a version of and then this episode could have just as well been called "A Mighty Wind," because
Yes.
that's basically what happens every time when he plays this cursed piece. This huge voodoo wind comes in and wrecks the club that he's in.
And he seems not to
Um,
notice.
yeah, he does. Yeah, he's obviously like he's deep in the juju with the voodoo. Um, then he gets home later, and the same things happen. Same thing happens to him at home, and then this fantastic like voodoo priest walks in a nappy, and
Yes.
causes him to faint, and nicks the music back. And you're like, well, let that be a lesson to you, Roy
Yes,
Castle.
that's right. I expected something a bit more gruesome, but yes, Voodoo Man in a
Yeah,
nappy, that's fine.
that's all you need to end that segment. But I think yeah, if it was made now, you'd probably have the guy come in and rip his heart out, and
Yes.
and leave him bleeding on the floor. But he's just kind of left there in his groovy London flat covered in music pages.
It's fun and it's
The fun one.
it's entertaining
Yeah.
you remember it probably more than the other episodes after the
That's the
film.
point. Who
Weirdly.
would have thought you look at because we looked at the poster, you think Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, and you see Roy Castle, and you kind of go, ho, 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 Roy Castle, ho, ho, ho. But actually he is quite strong in it. And actually she's stronger than, like, say, Donald Sutherland, who gives a fairly forgettable performance in this one. But we'll come to him.
Yes.
An early performance, bless him. Yeah.
Okay,
Episode
so we're on to
4.
episode 4, aren't we? Disembodied Hand.
This was my favorite one.
Yeah, this is pretty special, isn't it?
I think so. And it's got Michael Gough in it, who I absolutely adore. Mr. Wayne.
Yeah, that's right. Michael Gough as Eric Landor, and
Yeah.
Christopher Lee plays
Yeah.
a character that I've not really seen him play. This very
Yeah.
pompous art critic who gets taken down a peg or two by Eric Landor.
Yeah. He just loves just slagging off this guy's work to the derision and howls of laughter of everybody. Oh, yes, this is a singularly poor piece of work and all that kind of thing. He's just a really awful, hateful critic.
He is, but Michael Gough as Eric Landor turns the tables on him by having a monkey paint with his feces on a canvas, and then asking Christopher Lee to review it. And Christopher Lee said, "Oh yes, well this is exceptional work,
a masterpiece." And everyone's laughing because they all know that it's chimp poo.
So this news obviously gets around society, and Christopher Lee can't go anywhere without Eric Landor turning up in the audience and mocking him and silencing him for his ridiculous reviews.
Yeah, what's Christopher Lee's character called in this?
Franklin Marsh.
Because you can imagine Burgess Meredith's voiceover in the Twilight going, "This is Mr. Franklin Marsh." Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's
a cautionary tale about.
Yeah, it is exactly, yes, and it'll take him to the darkest recesses of the Twilight Zone. That's Rod Serling, the original ones. Now I was thinking Burgess Meredith did the movie, the Twilight Zone movie narration, which is amazing.
Oh yeah.
So he's got Michael Gough and Christopher Lee in one film. I mean, what else do you want?
And so Eric Lander is following Christopher Lee's Franklin Marsh around and mocking him and making him a laughingstock. And Christopher Lee eventually decides he's had enough and waits outside Landor's apartment and basically runs him over and squishes his hand. His hand has to be amputated, and obviously the worst possible thing for an artist to have their right hand amputated. And then cue the hand going rogue.
Yes, Michael Gough kills himself. And there's a great cut because he shoots himself in the head, and you see the point of view of the gun going towards his forehead, bang. And then you see Michael Gough's real attached hand going down the frame as he's dying, and it cuts to the disembodied hand coming out. And again, the special effects in this are great because it instantly cuts to when it's crawling up the back of Christopher Lee's car, it's quite good, but I think that was a real hand and they put like a prosthetic on the back. But then it cuts to this foam thing with a seam down the side.
You can kind of see where it's been sewn and stuff. But it's actually quite a good sort of mechanized hand that's dragging itself along.
Yeah, for 60 years ago, it's quite good. What do you want
for 100 grand?
Well, that's it. I've used worse prosthetics in my movies, I've got to say. I think, interestingly, from a filmmaker's point of view, they always say don't make anthologies, don't make portmanteaus, which is annoying because if you're a fan of them, you should just make whatever you want. But the reason being is that they don't really have, they tend to be patchy. Audiences think they're patchy. So it's like, well, it's only going to be half good, isn't it, if it's a portmanteau? But I think there's a lot of fun in the format. And there's been various, movies since this that have done it very well. So I enjoyed that. But yeah, it gets to episode 4 of 5, and 4 needs to be an absolute standout. And that's generally what happens. And
it is really
I think that's true of the Twilight Zone movie, actually, which I've mentioned, which is also portmanteau, of course. And I think the 4th one is the kid is the Joe Dante one where the kid has the ability to do things out of comic books and cartoons. So he tortures his whole family, and which is brilliant. And then the fifth one is John Lithgow, Nightmare at 10,000 Feet, which is doing
Yeah, that's
something on the
right.
wing. So the fourth and fifth one end on a huge high for Twilight Zone, and I think
Yeah.
it's kind of true of this as well. You
Yeah,
know?
this is a great one, and I love the whole
Mm.
thing, how to destroy the hand. Do you set it on fire? Do
Yeah.
you drown it, bury it, and it keeps coming back? It reminded me a bit of It Follows that, wherever this
Yes.
guy goes, there's always going to be the hand
Yeah.
crawling after him. And
Yeah.
then there's also that great scene in the pub where someone kind of slaps him on the back, on the shoulder, to kind of like
Yeah,
when
that
he's
was great.
buying drinks, and it's like, it's the hand. Oh no, it's just somebody tapping him on the shoulder.
Yeah, so it's like his I love the fact that his own personality has completely turned 180 on him and is now coming back together. It's like, yeah, the joke's on you now, pal.
Yeah.
And the hands, yeah, where he gets the hand and picks it up with a pair of fire tongs and throws it in the fire, and then when it comes after him, it's all burned and grey, Classic, really. I mean, that's been I saw a film, in fact, I don't know if you've seen a 1981 film called The Hand,
Oh, well,
starring Michael
yeah.
Caine. Directed by Oliver Stone, the Oliver Stone,
All right. Okay.
amazingly. It's like James Cameron doing Piranha 2, Flying Killers. We've got to start somewhere. Um, and it's about a disembodied hand who comes after Michael Caine. Um, and that creeped me out as a kid as well.
I mean, it's great that Christopher Lee did the movie because by this time I think he was living on mainland Europe because he was
Mm.
tax dodging from the UK or something, and
Good for you,
he
Chris.
he came back and he didn't want to. He felt a bit typecast in his vampire roles, and he didn't want to do
Yes.
that. So he did this, but I think he worried at the time that it was too small a part for him. But actually,
Mm.
he makes it into
Yeah.
just the standout of the film.
I don't think Christopher Lee can be in anything without being incredibly imposing and drawing your eye. You know what I mean? And it's the
Yeah.
voice and I mean, even like Sleepy Hollow, which is, one of the films he made in his later years. He's only in the sort of third or fourth scene as the judge. But when he appears and he hadn't acted for a while, there was this great sense of it's Christopher Lee, and he sends him off on the mission. He goes, "Now it is you, Ichabod Crane, who are put to the test." And you're like, "What a start to a movie!" You
Yeah.
almost don't need to see anything after that because you. Then I think in this it's true as well. You like because this has got Christopher Lee in it,
And he's up against Peter Cushing
elevates
as
it.
well, because often
Yes.
you sort of don't see them in the same scenes so much, and actually to have them in the
Yeah.
wraparounds in the train as well, it's a nice playoff they have against each other as well.
It is. I love it when they act together because usually one of them's the
Mm.
monster and one of them's the hunter or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's great. I mean, again, Peter Cushing. Basically, this you could rename this podcast the Peter Cushing Fan Club because we love him. And he's great in this. He's phenomenal, actually.
So
So yeah,
let's talk about episode 5, Vampire. Now it was
yes.
apparently Subotsky and Rosenberg could never really take vampires seriously, and actually in this segment it sort of plays up on the vampire. It's a
Hmm.
slight parody of the vampire genre, isn't it? It's
Yeah, and I'm glad. I bet Christopher Lee was basically, I'll be in it, but I'm not playing a bloody vampire.
yeah.
um, yes, it is a send up a little bit because it plays on your preconceptions.
And
Uh,
there's the whole thing, rather like in the first installment in this portmanteau, that the young doctor is very quickly persuaded that his wife is a vampire and that he has to
yeah.
kill her with very little evidence, in my mind.
Yeah, and it's true, and he's very sort of like cheery with her, despite this fact. It's Donald Sutherland plays the main character in this,
Yeah, one of his
which is
first movies, and he only got paid like
yeah.
£1,000 for it. So
I mean, and he died recently, which was very sad, but he definitely lived a full life, and he's a fantastic actor. He's been in some of the greatest films ever made, including some amazing horror films like Invasion of the Body Snatchers and so forth. So, R.I.P. Donald Sutherland. But yeah, this is a movie where it's clear he was like the American guest star. He doesn't he's not have much to do in this really, but he does okay with what he's given. And it has a good feel to it, this one. It
but
has a good feel to it.
this one I think is the show is stolen by, is it Max Adrian, the sort of older doctor colleague, isn't he? Who's
Yeah.
trying to,
Yes,
yeah,
he's very sort of sinister and knowing, and yeah,
yeah, and you think he's the good guy, kind of trying to protect his young doctor colleague
yeah.
from his vampire wife, and but actually he is, it turns out, a vampire himself and
Yeah.
wanting to do away with a rival. And he has that great moment to camera at the end of this section where he says the town's not big enough for the both of us,
For
basically.
two vampires and two doctors. Yeah, I know. I love it. It's and he's talking about, well, what does a vampire do? Well, they become a bat so that they could fly about and suck blood, and then that bat just keeps flying at dollars on, and it's this terrible rubbery thing, which is not at all convincing. I mean, it's probably even worse than some of the ones we've seen in Hammer, and it's got these glowing eyes. So they they cut away from it as soon as they can every time this bat comes in. Um,
Yeah.
but I get it. It was funny. I thought the bat was the worst special effect of the whole movie. I mean, we're talking creeping vines, which they're okay, but there's not many of them, and they weren't very menacing. Unlike Triffids, which even though they were models, the plant itself is terrifying. But the creeping vines were not that scary. The crawling hand was quite good, but the bats,
Yeah,
no.
no, no. But again, it was quite tongue in cheek, that whole section, I think, and I
True.
think it worked because of that. It wasn't the strongest section, but I quite liked it. The twist made it work for me.
I like the twist, and it felt good to have vampires in it. And they were like, okay, we're gonna, if we're gonna do a horror film, we're gonna do vampires. But I like the fact that when that one ends, that's when they start to go, hang on a minute, how come all these stories end in the death card,
Why are we
which
all
we've
getting the
discussed?
death card? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So let's talk about the final wraparound
Mm,
scene, because
yeah, I like
Peter
this a lot.
Cushing is, he's very other, the character he plays in this. He's got
Mm,
this Eastern European sounding accent, and
yes.
he's got this House of Horror card deck, and he's called
Mm,
Doctor Terror and things. And he's actually comes across as a reasonably warm, affable, old, wiry gentleman
yeah.
who seems a bit, he seems like he has almost a humanity that he doesn't like what he's having to do, but he's
Yeah.
basically taking these five guys to their death.
Basically, it's like the river Styx, isn't it? It's like
Yeah.
I've come to row you to Hades, basically. I
But
love
he's a
what he says.
benevolent death. He plays a
He's a
benevolent
benevolent death.
death.
He's gentle with them. Like they say, "Who are you?" And he just goes, "Have you not guessed yet?" And I
Mm.
was like, I have, sir. I know who you are. I know who you are." But yeah, and it's got that fantastic. I mean, and I love the way it wraps up. It's got that really great Twilight Zone sort of ending where they all shuffle off the train to this fantastic. It's either a real platform or a very good set,
And
and they have
Christopher
to
Lee's
follow.
like, "Don't you see? We've arrived. It's our final
Yeah,
destination."
yeah, which is the afterlife or whatever
Yes.
faces them now. I mean, hopefully they don't have to face all those horrors now in the afterlife. But yeah, and they shuffle off after Peter Cushing, who turns around and has a skull instead of a face, and it's like, oh, I see. Oh, it's a scythe. Um, but it's very satisfying ending actually. So by the time even though you've had shaky bits and bits you've laughed at, it is a very enjoyable hour and 37 minutes.
And it's genuinely creepy as well by the time
Yeah.
you've got that the sort of the death river Styx type scene at the end as well. It's yeah, thoroughly satisfying, I'd say.
And I'm really glad it's the first, sort of official Amicus movie that we're covering because I enjoyed last episode's City of the Dead. I enjoyed it a lot, actually. I really liked it. But this one
Mm.
feels like Amicus has arrived, and now we're doing a whole season of Amicus, not Hammer. I feel like right, this I'm into it. I'm into Amicus. I'm in Amicus territory. I'm really looking forward to the next few movies. So this is a great way to start. Is having five different stories and this amazing cast. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
And we've
really
got
enjoyed it.
Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee next time, because we will be looking at 1965's The Skull.
Oh, the skull. That's supposed to be a good one, isn't it? Um, I actually should sit down and work out which of these I've actually definitely seen, because I think we're talking about 2 out of 18.
Wow.
So it was one of the reasons we sat down to do Hammerheads in the first place was, actually it was Vicky who said to me, yeah, there's this really cool list here of 18 Hammer films. And I went, I've only seen about 5 of them. I've got a gap in my knowledge of horror films. I'm gonna watch these finally. And then Amicus is the same. I feel like I should have seen all these movies by now. So
Yeah, and
I'm really looking forward to the rest.
Next time, co-writer Robert Bloch
Oh, Psycho
of Psycho fame.
Brilliant.
And we've got Freddie Francis directing again.
Nice. Well, I very much look forward to that. Hopefully, yes, we haven't left it too long between episodes this time, because I think on the podcast channels it's listed as weekly or fortnightly, but we tend to do 2 a month. That tends to be the way we do it, but it's not set in stone. So stay with us.
Yeah, and get watching your Amicus films and join us next time.